What's up, everybody? My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and welcome to Knox Talks. Tonight, we have a very special guest. He is a man who is dear to me. We've had some very good conversations, and we've even played some music together. The biggest part of my life that has changed since I have known Aron, about 7 months ago. Well, let me start a little earlier. About 8 months ago, my son said to me, "Daddy, when are you going to be ready to have a dog? You are 39 years old." That is what my 7-year-old boy said to me. 1 month later, I get a text message from my dear friend Aron, and he says, "Do you guys want a dog?" And I'm like, "Kinda." And he says, "I found a little puppy at a garbage dump." He was out hunting, and he was driving, and he saw a little puppy just laying in the ditch, looking for help. And he sent me this picture. And that's the first time I ever saw my dear little Sue. Now, I would show you what he looks like now, but he's actually quite gigantic. And I don't want him out here because once he gets started, it's hard for him to stop. But without further ado, I would like to introduce to you my friend with an inspirational story. Here's Aron. What's up, my friend?
Not much. How you doing tonight, bud?
I'm a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
There's this big movement right now. I was watching a podcast that my friend puts on, and he focuses on men's mental health. And his guest was talking about how men could learn a lot actually from women in the way that they share their emotions, in the way they express their emotions, and how men are stereotypically supposed to hold that in. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And
I'll touch on that later.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So yeah, I'm a little nervous, and it's all right because we're here and life is beautiful.
We'll be nervous together, bud.
Here we are.
Here we are. So
I understand. You would like to dedicate this to somebody.
Yes, I would actually. Thank you. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening and to share a little bit of my life with everybody. Hopefully that comes with a little bit of hope, inspiration as well. But for everybody, COVID's been a hard time this year for everyone. And for me, with mental health and addictions rampant throughout Canada, sadly, my baby brother succumbed to his addictions and mental health this year. I recently just buried my brother. So tonight's talk is in memory of my brother, Ashley. And may he rest in peace. This one's for you, bro. So proceed, my friend, proceed.
Okay, well, I mean, the floor is kind of yours, man. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up for you?
Well, I grew up in a small town in little central Saskatchewan. I was adopted. I was adopted into a Caucasian home, being First Nations. I grew up next to two reserves. For the most part, I had a pretty average, normal childhood upbringing. I did all the normal things that most kids did. I played sports. I had friends. I did all the average things that kids would do.
So what kind of sports? What kind of sports did you play?
Well, when I was young, I started playing hockey. When I was 4.5, I started skating. I took to it right away, and that was actually something that what I didn't know at the time as a young person, but it would become something part of my life for the next, I can't even remember my whole life, basically. But yeah, hockey became a very big part of my childhood. I breathed the hockey rink. That's all I ever wanted. And I would do absolutely everything in the world to get to the rink in the wintertime, even if that meant hitchhiking, which was a whole mile walk, not far, but that's okay. Yeah. Other than that, like, I played other sports too. You know, I grew up next to a golf course, so I did a lot of golfing as a kid, and then I played baseball as well. You know,
So what kind of scores? What kind of scores did you get in golf?
I was a terrible golfer as a kid. Terrible, terrible. I would golf 18 holes a day if I could. Yeah, by the time I got to 9, 10ish, you know, I was pretty decent golfer already. So, and it is something that I do today, to this day, and enjoy.
And you took hockey pretty seriously in your teenage years, didn't you? Like when you were getting into 12, 13, 14 years old, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I guess when I was around 9 or 10 too, I got the opportunity to play on all First Nations hockey team.
Really?
And we went to a Western Canada Native Hockey Tournament in Saskatoon. And I didn't realize it at the time that these group of boys would be the same group of guys that would be part of adventures for the rest of my teenage years, going to tournaments all the way across Canada, playing in international hockey tournaments, and traveling around playing summer hockey. And yeah, hockey was a big part of my life as a young person. I would play 10 months out of 12, 3, 4 years in a row straight. Everything revolved around hockey, you know. Some of my best memories to this day would probably be, you know, the years that I had playing hockey, traveling across Canada, and getting the opportunities to play international as well, you know, playing against Japan and France and stuff like that. So
really,
yeah.
holy cow. So tell us a little bit about like how old were you when you first started like wanting to experiment with drugs and alcohol and stuff? Like what was it like?
Well, I was young. I was really young, actually.
Like was it like something that you like you couldn't wait to do?
No, it wasn't anything like that. No, not at all. It was so but my mom and dad had received I think it might have been an anniversary gift, possibly, I'm not sure. It was a bottle of hard liquor. And as a young person, 9ish, I guess, probably, they would have it in their basement in their pantry. I would go downstairs when they would be gone, and I would sneak sips, and then I would refill the bottle with some water, and then I would put it back up in there. And one day I drank a little too much, and I got a little tipsy. And then I remember I was trying to hide everything, and I just ended up making a bigger mess. So I think my parents, when they finally did give that bottle away to somebody, I'm pretty sure it was about 90% water and about 10% vodka.
You know, so, I would venture to say that you are not the only young person to have ever done that. I remember I have a similar story to that, actually. My parents, they did win a wheelbarrow full of booze. It wasn't it was my father and my stepmother. Yeah, they won a whole wheelbarrow, and I did exactly the same thing you did. So
there you go.
Yeah. So how old were you when like what happened? Like how did you get into the more serious substances? Like what how did that come to be?
That would be hockey again, like I said. So I would go off to these hockey tournaments all the time. I'd play in these big Western Canada tournaments. We'd go to other major cities, and we'd have 1 or 2 chaperones for 20 guys, you know, 14, 15-year-olds. And yeah, we got into trouble. And I got into some cocaine one night and really enjoyed it. I was about 13, 14. Wrong place at the wrong time, I would say.
So you were with other kids your age, and they had cocaine.
Well, see, the thing about this tournament is it was an age category from novice all the way up to midget. So we had teams from all across Western Canada, aging from 5-year-olds all the way up to 17-year-olds. So that meant family members from other reserves came and stuff like that. So there was literally hundreds and hundreds of people at this arena. And so for a small kid that weighed maybe 110 pounds soaking wet, it was very easy for me to just kind of get lost in the crowd and kind of get into trouble, you know. And at hotels, you know, we would stay at hotels, and a lot of times, you know, as groups of boys, we would get together and we would hang out in a hotel room together and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
average teenager boys, all together,
Uh-huh.
feeling like we had the world at our backs, do
Yeah.
anything we wanted. And we did. We got in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Young and indestructible. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So how did your hockey career end? What did you just put it down, or you lost interest,
Yeah,
or what happened?
I lost interest. My narcotics usage and lifestyle took over, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, by the time I was 17, yeah, I think I was in trouble with the law already at that point. My parents had no control over me at all whatsoever. I wasn't living at home anymore. At that point, I mean, I'd already been homeless. Yeah, just out there as a delinquent teenager, thinking that
Mm-hmm.
I knew the answers to the world and that I could do anything and that I would be okay.
Yeah.
Um, there was a lot of anger and there was a lot of rage in my teenage years that fueled a lot of those things, and a lot of that
So
stemmed back to being adopted.
so that's where the base of your fear was, or sorry, not fear, your anger.
Yeah, being adopted did a number on me as a young person.
How old were
Definitely.
you when you were
I
adopted?
was I was 2.5. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was actually born addicted. My mom was a heroin addict.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was born with a disadvantage right off the hop. And I've had to fight really hard to get to where I am today. So but yeah, being adopted, it brought up a lot of just mm, emotional feelings for a young person, for a child, for a 7, 8-year-old to feel like life's not worth living anymore because my mom didn't want me or my dad didn't want me. I have these token white people looking after me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I felt. And then I grew up beside two reserves, and then I found myself becoming self-loathing to my own culture and hating myself as a First Nations person. So those were my struggles as a kid, and all of those things definitely fueled the addiction
Mm-hmm.
full-heartedly. It wasn't like throwing a log on the fire. It was like cutting down the rainforest and tossing it in.
Wow.
um so yeah.
So you did a stint in private school, right?
Yes, I did.
Now that was after some of this homelessness and stuff that you're talking about. Your parents sent you, or how did that work?
No, so when I was 15, I wanted, like any kid that age who played hockey competitively, I wanted the big show. So I wanted the opportunities. I had a chance to go to a private boarding school that had an excellent hockey program, and so I went. I
Mm-hmm.
convinced my parents. They drove me there. They dropped me off, uh, and that was the first time in my life that I'd actually really was left on my own. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to be responsible for my schooling. I had to be responsible for everything. I had to get myself up in the morning. I had to do all of these things. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and I failed at it miserably. Um, yeah, it just didn't go well. And the school itself was it was, at that time, a lot of parents from across Canada would send their troubled kids there, because
Right.
they didn't know what else to do with them. And it was like, well, let's send them to this private boarding school, and it would be the place for them. They would get the help that they would need. But
And
there
was there
again,
help?
no, there was a bunch of teenage boys and girls, all with the same problems, with no parents. So you can imagine what happened.
Yeah.
We just went wild. I got
And,
introduced to pills,
and nobody
and
cared. There was no chaperoning. There was no.
we had one dormitory RA for 20 guys.
Wow.
And these
Okay.
are 20 guys from all over Canada and the States that all came. Like
Yeah.
I had people from Texas. I had people from Tuktoyaktuk, of all places. It
Uh-huh.
was my roommate. So it was, yeah, it was eye opening for sure. But it definitely, that's probably where I could probably pinpoint right down to where life really started to go out of control for me, was at that point, because one semester in, I got expelled.
Right. So what
And
happened? What happened? What happened then when after you got expelled? Did you go back home?
I went home for a little bit, yeah. But at that point, I mean, I had been introduced to so many different things now. The party scene was not it was something that it was alluring at that point
Yeah.
now. It was fun.
Yeah.
I was a young teenage boy. There was girls, all that, the whole scene, everything like that, the sex, the drugs, the rock and roll. That's kind of like, that's what I wanted.
Mhm.
And that's how I felt. And I wanted to have, I wanted to feel like somebody that mattered. That's what I
Yeah.
wanted, as a
And I
teenager,
know,
because I felt unloved. I felt useless, and I felt like I didn't matter in this world. And that, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, adoption. It's a
mhm.
big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you end up in a culture where everybody wants to be the best at being bad,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So who can get the most attention, who can use the most substances,
Yeah,
and that's like living the dream when you're that age. I
yeah.
can relate.
It was always a competition, it was always like,
Yeah.
hey, I can do that, or I can do this,
Yeah.
never thinking about, oh, this could turn out bad. A short story, riding in the back of a half ton. We jumped the highway at 100 kilometers an hour while I was sitting in the back of a half ton truck one night.
Wow.
You know what
And
I
you
mean?
and
It's
here you are.
stories. Here I am, right? And it's
Yeah.
those kinds of things that it just, when I think about it today, how am I even alive? But I am, and
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah. So I understand you moved to the city.
Numerous cities, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was never one to sit still. No, I was
Mhm.
always on the move.
Mhm.
6 months in, I got bored. I had to keep moving.
Yeah.
Um, but that didn't help me out either, because all that did was broaden my contacts, and they weren't good contacts.
Yeah. Well, and you
Yeah.
mentioned the other day when we were talking, you mentioned that it wasn't long until you were actually incarcerated.
Yeah.
So
After getting
what was that like?
it was rough.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I went in as a young offender. Um, I went in and I was basically 18.
Yeah.
But when I went in there, I didn't expect what I got. Um,
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I got to go back for a sec. What
yeah.
what what landed you in? What landed you in prison?
Um, like I said, I was out of control, completely out of
Uh-huh.
control. So I would take stuff from people,
Uh-huh.
whether that would be their car, or
Why is that funny?
I don't know, but it is.
I don't know either. Yeah, it's
you
kind of
know,
funny.
but at that age, I thrived on this thing called destroying other people's lives, and I loved it.
Mhm.
So if I could do something that made somebody else be put in a position that was not good, I loved it. I absolutely it was an addiction in itself for me. That amount of power and control that I could have over one's life. So that too fueled a lot of the things that I did.
Uh,
If I could exert that power, I would. And eventually, yeah, I got into trouble. I got arrested numerous times.
mhm.
Whatever. And yeah, like you said, I ended up getting incarcerated
Well, you
because of
told
it.
me when we were talking about it yesterday, you said something when I asked you what happened, you said you don't remember. Remember it. So, but anyways, so what was it like in jail? Like what did you get any help at all? Like I mean, surely
No.
they knew that substances was prevalent in your life when you went in. Am I correct?
Yeah, they were, but when I went in at that point in time, addictions, recovery programs, all those kinds of things were different at the time.
Mhm.
It wasn't a place for young people. Uh, the first treatment center I ever went to, my parents had to really pull some strings to get me in there because I wasn't an adult, and that wasn't something that was easily available for teenagers like it is today.
Yeah.
That has changed a lot tremendously in the last 20 years, for sure. And that is something that I would say is great, because as young people, they need something out there for sure, and I needed something and I didn't get it. Being incarcerated as that kind of person at that point in my life, all it did was give me the tools to come out and be a better criminal in the end. It didn't do me any favors. It didn't teach me anything. It certainly didn't rehabilitate me in any means, you know. It's sad and it's unfortunate, you know, but that wasn't the end of the story. There's more.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So what was it like? So you went into jail. Was there substance use in jail?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it like getting out?
Getting out. So for me, the experience in itself was really strange. I know we talked yesterday, but I didn't really get into it too much. But for some reason, I got special treatment a lot of times, or I felt I got special treatment.
In jail or out of
in
jail?
in jail. So I actually ended up in open custody, living in a house, going to high school in a small town in Saskatchewan at the end. And when my release date came, um, I didn't stick around. I left. Um, and I just kept. I was free, and I actually got pulled over the first night I got released, and I was pretty messed up. And I remember the officer looking at me saying, "Okay, you know," he said my name, and I said, "Yeah." I said, "But you know what? I don't have any restrictions on my probation, so there's nothing you can do." And he just looked at me and he says, "You keep the attitude up, and there will be something." And I was like, "Whatever." I just didn't care.
Mhm.
Um, Something was missing in my life at that point. Something inside of me that allowed me to have a conscience, I guess. Just somewhere along the way as a teenager, it disappeared.
Mhm.
So, and that carried into my incarceration. And then when I got out, yeah, I mean, I know at the time a lot of people said being a young offender, like it's not like you're going to the big house and it's not, whatever, but it does affect a person, and you're bound by some of the same rules that they are, in a correctional or a penitentiary. You get in trouble, you get isolated. I spent
Did that
plenty
ever
of,
happen to you?
oh yeah, I did a week straight one time,
Uh-huh.
you know, um, just for being bad, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes you have to exert yourself in weird ways, when I was in there.
Mhm.
Because sometimes some of these other, I'll call them roommates, would get the idea that, we were in the pen and we had something to prove. It was weird. It was strange, all I wanted was to get out and never go back. That's all I wanted, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys that I had to share a room with were lifers. My first roommate killed two family members, and I had to sleep in
A
the same room with
lifer.
him. Yeah, by myself. He was 15, and he scared the crap out of me.
Wow. Yeah,
I
well,
couldn't
yeah.
close. I couldn't close my eyes the first night I was in there by myself with him. It was scary, you know. But even then, I can, I it wasn't enough to stop me.
Uh-huh. So you're out of jail. What are you doing out of jail? Did you meet someone? What did you do?
Um, I got worse. Yeah, I definitely got worse. Um, I dabbled more into a criminal lifestyle. I managed to keep myself out of trouble with the law.
You mean out of getting caught?
Yeah. Um, and basically, I got into some trouble with some people that I didn't want to be in trouble with, and I ended up just taking off. And I wanted to get things put together in my life in such a way that allowed me to be better. And that's kind of the bottom line through my whole story is I've always had that. I want to be better. It's always kind of been there. But anyways, I ended up at a small post-secondary educational facility um, in my early 20s where I met a woman and we got married. And we had 2 kids.
And what was the like? What was this woman doing in this place that you were at? Like, what did she do?
Well, she was another student. She was
Uh-huh.
working towards her bachelor's. We'll touch on that after
Okay.
a little bit, but yeah, she's a great woman, hardworking. She put
Mhm.
herself through school. She was an amazing. Yeah, she was.
Cool. Well, there's this. You were talking about you did some treatment. You
Yes,
tried to get clean, and
numerous times.
but it stuck for a little while one time, didn't it?
Um, it stuck a little bit, yeah, because I thought I was losing. Thought I was going to lose everything. My wife and I got separated, and I had gone to treatment, and it was in 2009, and I had 2 little kids, and we had been through some pretty tough waters with my addiction. Um, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. So let's skip ahead a little bit to March of 2010.
Yes, March of 2010. So I had mentioned earlier that I thought I was going to lose everything with her, and so I made the attempt to get clean. And March 10th, 2010, I was awoken to my wife sitting in the bathroom. And it was bad. It was bad. She was vomiting blood. And I took her to the hospital. And they shipped her to a major city where she died 26 hours later from a rare blood disease that 1 out of 4 million die from a year annually. She was 29 years old and I was 30.
Sorry.
And I remember feeling like, I had some sobriety under my belt. We were living together again. We were, I thought I had the world. But somebody else is in control. And she passed on, yeah. So
and she never used substances, did she?
no, she was sober. Yeah, she was a children's pastor. To be honest, if I'm going to be real with everybody here, yeah, we couldn't have been any more opposite from each other. But for some reason, we ended up getting married and having 2 beautiful children. That is a blessing in itself. So, but in 2010, that's when life got really crazy for me, because through that process, I ended up losing my children a month later, through some unfortunate circumstances, through some grieving parents, her parents. And then my biological mom, who I had made contact with earlier in life, I had received a phone call. 3 months after my wife passed away, I was told that my mom was on life support. And I was given the options of, you leave her on life support or you pull the plug. So in 2010, from March 10th on, in 3 months, I had lost my wife, my children, and my mom. And really just decided I didn't want to live anymore. And I tore into it and I tore into it good. Not much time in that first year after she passed that I can recall being sober, to be honest.
And what happened? What happened in
I
that year?
eventually ended up overdosing. Yep. And that didn't turn out well either, but yeah, I was just broken, you know. This is a person who was rejected from day one. And I was always told as a teenager that I would never amount to anything by certain people because I was a bad kid. I did bad things. And so that's the assumption that was made, you know, that I would never amount to anything. And so when I lost my wife and I lost everything, I just gave up. I tried to carry on and I tried to portray an image that allowed to look normal, I guess, but no, there was nothing normal about it. It destroyed me. It really did. And it took me to places I thought I would never go. It amped up the addiction big time. And I alienated the world. I became homeless numerous times.
So who did you turn?
About that.
Who did you turn to?
I didn't turn to anybody, really. I mean, I had a girlfriend, you know, and that's a wonderful story in itself. It has a happy ending, but she at the beginning was just somebody that was there because I couldn't be alone. I couldn't do alone. Being alone in my books meant I might as well just go hang myself. Because I had been so beaten down and broke by so many different scenarios growing up, you know, and having to fight and having to always feel like I had to prove myself in some shape or form or another to somebody else, you know, just to feel like I mattered a little bit. And that's no fault to anybody. You know, I had great parents. I had a great upbringing, but I'm adopted and there's some genetical things that are there.
So what was it that brought you into recovery? Like, was it one pivotal event?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the last few years, I had been trying to get clean for a while and here and there. But I went out and I got evaluated my mental health. And I recently had been diagnosed with bipolar. So a year ago, I guess it would have been last summer. So 16 months ago, we'll say. I went off my medication because I felt okay, you know. I felt normal. I felt like things were, you know, I wasn't going nuts or crazy or anything like that. And I thought, you know, it'll be fine. I don't need these medications anymore. And I had a really bad life, almost lifelong addiction to Ritalin. And so I went and picked up I'll call it my ADHD medication. And that turned into a week of I don't remember. Yeah, you know, that week consisted of tidbits here and there. I remember moments, you know, they weren't great moments. They were scary moments. I woke up in a McDonald's in somebody else's clothes. I didn't know whose clothes they were. McDonald's was closed, but the manager felt bad for me, which I found really strange too, because I was in an area of town where it was notorious for profiling. Yeah, for some reason, you know, I look terrible. Like I would have had me arrested at that point. You know, it was bad. It was really, really bad. I got an idea of what it's like for somebody who might have dementia or Alzheimer's. When I finally got everything put back together, I was hallucinating so bad, and I didn't know what was real anymore. I spent
And
a whole day just running around the city trying to get away from my family because I thought they were chasing me, only to find out they weren't.
And it was your pastor that finally finally scooped you up, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, I went to a grocery store actually, and the manager came out and said, "Are you okay, sir?" And I had been in this parking lot for a couple hours now, knocking on windows and walking around and just, thinking, why aren't these people taking me home? I thought they were my friends. I was hallucinating bad. And she says, how can I help you? And I said, my mom won't talk to me. She's like right over there. She's sitting in that car and she won't talk to me. I don't understand. She says, do you want to call her? I said, can I? She said, yes, come inside. So we went inside, the store. She gave me the phone. And for some moment through all of that, I had the presence of mind to call the house number, not her cell number. And she answered the phone. And I broke down crying. And I said, where are you? She said, I'm at home. And I said, you're not outside? Said, no. And then the process went to get our pastor to come find me, pick me up. And when he came, I took these two fingers and I, as hard as I could in his shoulder. And he's like, ow. And he's like, what was that for? And I said, I had to make sure you were real because I don't know what's real right now. And I don't know what isn't real. Everything was just a dream at that point. And I knew. And he says, what do you want to do? And I said, I can't do this anymore. I need help. And so he took me home. My wife and I, that I have now today, I'm remarried, by the way. She left the house. She left me by myself for a week. And I went into my doctor's office and I said, I am addicted to my ADHD medication and it is ripping my life apart. It has been the underlying problem my whole life. Not to say that I don't like doing other drugs. I told him, I said, but this is my biggest means to a way and I can't have it anymore. So I need you to blacklist me from any narcotics and make sure that is there. I said, because I'm sick and tired of feeling the way I'm feeling and I can't do this anymore. I want a life and I want to be a father. I want it to be a husband. I want it to be a good son, a good son-in-law. I wanted a career. And I wasn't going to get any of those things doing what I was doing. I was headed straight back to 6 feet under or behind bars. That's where I was headed again. And, I had a taste of the good life a little bit, and it was enough to say, don't let it go, man. You can do this. But I had to ask for help.
And what's it like now? And how long ago was that?
16 months ago.
And you've got your children in your life now?
Yes, I do. I do.
And,
my children and we all live in the same house.
And your mother and you are rebuilding a relationship?
Absolutely. My mother and I have a wonderful relationship today. Background on that. I think at some point I hated my mom. Definitely. She didn't understand me. I was angry at her. And she always resorted to yelling at me. She didn't understand me.
Just clarification, we're talking about your adopted mother now.
Yes, my adoptive mom. Sorry about that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the viewers knew that we were talking about that.
But today we have a great relationship. She's probably one of the first people I'll go to when I have a problem today.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a conversation with her today, and she's very insightful. So she's probably been a very good resource for you.
Well, she's a teacher.
Uh-huh.
so that probably plays a part in some of it too. But she knew at some point that she had to think outside the box of what we were used to and accustomed to growing up. So she went out and she sought help for herself to deal with me.
Right.
And I'm thankful she did, because I wouldn't have what I have today if it wasn't for my parents.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have what I have today if it wasn't for my mother.
Right.
She does have a very good grasp and solid understanding of what it means to be dependent on something and to live with somebody who is an addict, who is just absolutely insane and out of control.
Mhm.
She's a strong woman. She is. She had to be to put up with me.
Yeah.
So
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now? I understand you're involved with an organization, Men of the North.
yes. Well, I'm not actually entirely involved yet. I want to be involved, but I
Okay.
have an acquaintance, or I should say, I have a friend
Uh-huh.
who started an organization in northern Saskatchewan called Men of the North, and basically it's a place where men can get together. They meet once a
Uh-huh.
week. They break bread, and they talk about the problems that we as men face, on everyday basis. As men, we are conditioned to not feel. Society tells us that we have to be strong, and we have to be, we have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, and we have to do all of these things. And the reality is that we're humans just as much as women are. We have emotions, we have feelings, we have things that we want to talk about.
We just
Just
we
as
just
much.
suck at it.
Yeah, we use a lot of this instead of
Yeah.
this, and the idea behind it is to use more of this and less of this, and
Mhm.
to not only that, but to build community relationships, and to start developing programs in the North, that address problems like mental health and addictions as well.
Mhm.
So in the future, we're they want to broaden, more in my direction, and I've expressed my desires to want to be a part of that, to help spearhead something, in my area for men,
Mhm.
and just to kind of help raise awareness too. It's for all walks, it's not just people that are dealing with addictions, mental health, or anything else like that. It's for all men, and all race and color and age, um,
Mhm.
right up to 19 and up. So
Awesome,
that's
man.
the Men of the North.
And when we spoke today, you shared some exciting news with me.
Yes. So this last year, I decided to go to school to become a home inspector. Um, yeah, and so basically, I finished today. Was my last day of class, and I have a friend who decided he wanted to take the course. He's a little older than me. He has more resources at his fingertips. But long story short, Monday we're in the process of setting up our business plans. We're going into business and we're starting a home inspection group. A lot of it is going to be focused in on housing projects that have to do with housing developments on First Nations reserves, because that's something that I believe in very much. I think living conditions on a lot of First Nations communities is not even subpar, so there's things that need to be addressed, and I'm hoping through, us being home inspectors, and also, we have construction backgrounds as well, that maybe we can invoke some change there, and maybe help put families into safer housing.
That's amazing. Amazing. 16 months ago, where were you? And now look.
Sleeping at McDonald's.
Saying, somebody better arrest
Yeah,
me.
somebody come get me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Okay. Well, is
And
there
then,
anything? Sorry, go
well,
ahead.
there was one other thing actually. So there's a worldwide nonprofit organization that I have now gotten involved with, and I'm a part of it. And basically, I'm titled an ambassador for truth and reconciliation. And it's in conjunction with a nonprofit organization out of Manitoba that has been successful for numerous years, bridging the gap between First Nations and non-First Nations communities, addressing issues that needed to be addressed, and not only that, but hopefully some education in there, both in both directions,
Well, there's been some terrible, terrible things happen, and I don't even know. You know what? I can't even really speak to it. So it's really important work. That's really the only thing that I can honestly say about it.
It's very near and dear to me. When I was out and about doing my thing, I got to live with my biological family, and I got to see how they lived.
Mm-hmm.
That's average for a lot of First Nations people, and that's sad.
Yeah.
And you know what? It needs to change something in that area. So that's another part that I'm slowly getting involved in as well. My life's experiences, I think, have prepared me, for a lot of these things that are starting to happen. God's timing is the best timing, and that's all I can say. I didn't do this; He did. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't, for my higher power, for sure.
So is there anything that you want to say to anybody out there that might be struggling tonight?
Absolutely. Ask for help. That sounds so just, but honestly, if you're watching right now, hear me. I'm the one that didn't want to ask for help at all. Look at what happened when I asked for help. I think I've asked for help more times this year than I think I have in my entire life. If you are feeling anything of what sorts, and it doesn't have to do with addictions. It can be your mental health as well, Ask for help, pick up a phone, talk to somebody before it's too late. Because I can honestly tell you that if you think that nobody cares about you, you're wrong. I care. Ask for help. You can do it.
Awesome, man. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us tonight, Aron. You did amazing.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Yes, you're very welcome. Oh, and here comes my son to do things he's not supposed to do right now.
Hey, buddy.
Okay,
hi.
Go. So, okay. Now we have another guest tonight who has another side of this story to tell.
Absolutely.
So
I will hand her off.
Without further ado, yes. Where's Denise?
She is coming. Thank you much, everybody. Have a great evening, and take care.
Thanks, Aron.
There you go, Mom.
Hello, Denise.
Hi there. Hi, Dan.
How are you?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm good.
Are you feeling nervous, or have the nerves settled?
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. We're allowed to talk about that here.
Yeah, I was listening to Aron's story, and you always get a new perspective on what was really going on inside of his life and in his mind and so on when you when you hear it like this. And so I've off to the side here shedding a few tears, but love the guy to the moon and back. So yeah.
He's a good man.
Yes, he is.
When we spoke today, one of the very first things you said to me is, I need to tell the umbrella story.
Okay. Well,
so, I didn't hear the umbrella story, but I can't wait because it sounds like it's pretty important to you.
Yes, it is, because as Aron said, when he was a kid, he loved to golf, and he was a good golfer. And we lived only a few miles from the golf course. And so during summer holidays, this kid always had to move. And so he would like to go golfing just to practice so he could beat everybody on Saturday and Sunday, which he did. So he must have been about, he didn't have a driver's license yet. So we would drive him to the golf course and leave him off. And then we would, go back to home for our work, like my husband and I, or my husband or I did this. And he would spend a certain amount of hours and then we would pick him up again. Well, this one day, I had taken him there and I went to pick him up. And I noticed there was a lot of mud on the road as I was going there. So obviously it had rained hard over where he was, but not where I was, or I would have gone sooner to pick him up. And I thought, because the clubhouse is closed at that time of the day in this small golf course. He had no place to go. So I'm going to find a really disgruntled, wet kid. And he's not going to be very happy camper. He's going to say, Mom, why didn't you come pick me up? But I was very surprised because I found a very dry, happy kid. And he's bouncing around and, hi, Mom. And I'm like, oh, how come you're dry? Like, where did you do? Like, crawl under a tree? Or how did you stay so dry? And he's like, well, just as I was going up number 1 fairway, I found this really nice umbrella, a black and white umbrella. Mm-hmm. And the rains came about when I was about on number 4 fairway, and guess what? I had a beautiful umbrella, which he used and kept himself dry through the storm. And so, as he went through the trials of his life that he talked to you about, that umbrella came to my mind very much, because I felt God had left that umbrella for him to keep him and to shelter him and to be there when I wasn't there. And so many times when I didn't know where he was and whether he was dead or alive or whatever, and I would worry about all those things, I would think of the umbrella. And that brought me back to faith, to know that it wasn't me who could look after him, that God was looking after him, and he would get him through this, no matter how many years it took. And that's the umbrella story.
That's a powerful story. I have a story similar to that. That's for another night. So if you would care to, would you like to share some of the struggles you faced? I mean, I understand Aron was coming and going and telling you all kinds of stories and things that must be hard for a parent to hear.
Yes, because he was very honest about things. He's dishonest, but he was honest, as that's really the way it was. And he was a loving kid, as much as I didn't know what was going on underneath in his mind, but he was a loving kid, and he always showed so much potential. He had so many skills, and he was gifted and intelligent, and he could just pick up a guitar and listen to a music and play, like, who can do that? Well, I know you can, he can, but I certainly could never. I felt as he was really getting into the drug scene that my life and my husband's life, we were just spiraling uncontrollably into like our lives felt like they were out of control. If Aron was doing well for a short period of time, we were doing well. If he was not, then we were not. It was just, we were very codependent on what was happening to him. And we tried so hard to get him to get help. And we took him many places and through many programs and different things. And it seemed to be that he would kind of do better for a while, but then fall right back. And this was very difficult for us. I just copied a few things down here. when he was a teen, especially before he was 18, you feel very overwhelmed because you feel responsible. This is your child. He's not an adult yet. So we were filled with fear, a sense of great responsibility. I dealt with obsessive thoughts. I felt stuck. I felt angry. I felt anxious. And I felt that all of my boundaries were always being eroded by him when he was home, and I was powerless to do anything about it. And very many scary times came our way. I was a person of faith, so I prayed, and I prayed a lot for deliverance or just a miracle. Lord, just deliver him of this addiction. And I would give Aron to God over and over again, and then I'd take him right back the next time there was a problem. It just seemed like I was going through what he was going through. Only his problem was drugs and my problem was him. And I made it mine. I finally came to a point after a lot of help from praying with friends and being part of groups and all that kind of thing over the years. I remember one specific time going into a church to pray for him. It was just me and God. And I literally took him by the scruff of the neck, took Aron, and I took him to the cross that was at the front of the church. And I just left him there. And I said, I'm letting go of you. I'm not doing such a great job here. He's yours. I'll love him. I'll do what you want us to do. But I'm no longer going to be or try to be in control of anything. And I let go of him at that point. And so from then on, as things accelerated in his life, I always had the vision of the umbrella and the vision of that cross. Those are the two things I hung on to. At one point when he attempted to live with us again, but then he eroded the boundaries quickly. He would take our vehicles or refuse to listen to no drugs or alcohol in the house or no parties in the garage, things like that. And he refused to listen to us. I finally said, you can't live here then, and was able to stick to my boundaries and said, you need to go out and look after yourself because I'm not enabling your situation anymore. And so he did. He wasn't happy about it, but he did go out on his own after that, at that point. And so I remember those times when there were kind of like victories for me, for my husband and I. Kleenex, please. Excuse me. Always tears. We
So
were
in victory, by victory you mean standing your ground on your boundaries?
yes, being able to at points before that I was too I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't be that.
What was it like feeling victorious on one side, but having to let go on the other side? That must have been very difficult for you, a double-edged knife.
It was, yes, it was, and because it's hard for me to find the right words, but before that moment, I felt stuck. It was like I had no choices. I had to accept what was happening, and it was an awful, consuming feeling. I was going in a downward spiral. But at that point, when I could stand for my own principles and consider that I mattered too, that I was a person, and my feelings, and God cared for me as much as he did about Aron. I could go forward. And I don't have any of this written down because this is
So there's a lot of acceptance in your story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There is.
And you found freedom in that?
I did. I found a lot of freedom in that, or able to let go. And because there were some really, really scary moments, like thoughts that come to me are just the clang of those jail doors behind us as we would go to visit him when he was incarcerated. It's just that clang, that sound as he would go through each section to where he was. Just clang. It was an overwhelming feeling that would just make me break into tears, that I could hardly be normal when I would get in to visit him. Another thing that was an overdose. He was married already, but he was living with us for a while, and he was cleaning up, and he was going to meetings and looking after himself. And we were having a pretty good relationship, but his wife and kids were in another city. And at that point, he took another turn for the worse and disappeared. And my husband got a phone call from somebody who said Aron's really sick. So he went to pick him up and immediately called an ambulance because he got him to a place where there was an ambulance, and ambulance got him to the hospital. We really feared to lose him. And that memory was of my husband and I sitting there day and all the next night, with Aron being totally unconscious and not responsive, and just sort of jerking muscle movements and all the things that the drugs were doing to him. And just that fear that we might lose him. Again, I hung on to the umbrella and the cross and said, no, this won't accept that. This won't happen. God, you will give him back to us. And he did. He came through that. I had to get him to a mental health center a couple of days later, from the small hospital to a big hospital. And again, I went through this whole thing of Aron screaming and saying, Mom, you can't leave me here. You won't leave me here, as they literally tied him to a bed. And just having to see those things. If there's any of you out there that are hearing me speak tonight and have these issues with your child, know that there's others who have gone through it too. And I know it is hard, and I feel for you, and I pray for you, whoever you are.
So
Yeah.
what was it like when you saw that Aron might be ready to make this decision to turn it over?
Like the one, like there were different times when we thought that was coming, but it didn't. But when he truly did turn it over,
how long did it take? How long did it take for you to realize, like, maybe this time might be different?
This time is it. Yes. I felt that pretty quickly, because he seemed to act different, and just the way the scene all went down again. It was almost like a miracle to me that he could have gone through that week with the way he did, and still week, or how many days it was. I think it was even more than a week.
And not even get arrested.
And not even get arrested. And I'll never forget that phone call when he called me from the grocery store, because we had been looking for him. We were so fearful already as to what may have happened, and no one had seen him, and no one knew where he was, and when I got that phone call, I knew he was alive. And of course, I called his wife, and his wife called our pastor, who was his pastor as well. His pastor happened to be and him are very good friends. And he went to pick him up, and you heard the rest of the story. It was, and that whole denial that Aron was in over his meds and how he would misuse them, like we knew that for years he was doing this, but he would never listen to us, that this was, at the crux of his problems. But to hear it coming out of his own mouth that no, this has to turn around, and then have his pastor go to the doctor with him and sit there and tell the doctor what he did. I mean, that was just, I knew there was a change. It was a breakthrough. It was a major breakthrough, and has been ever since. Like, yeah, he's been doing so well.
And I know your story is being heard tonight because I know some of the people that are watching, and I know that they are going through some things like this. So your story is being heard. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it's like now? Like, does Aron ever, do the heckles ever go up? Do you ever worry? Does Aron ever say something or act a little bit of a certain way and you're like, oh no? Or has that subsided? Like,
well, he's had a lot of challenges, so there'd be the odd time when something would just make him angry and upset. That would happen, and so then, it goes up into my mind, like, is he going to get through this trial without turning to drugs? Or is, the thought is there, but I really don't let it stay there. And really just send up a prayer for him, and he always has made it through. And has done well, regardless of how strong some of the trials are. He's had some tough things, really tough things. COVID hasn't been the greatest thing thrown at him in the last 16 months. There's been a lot. I won't even get into it, but there's been some stuff. So, yeah. And, And I'd say it was, I feel that there's more of a normal, natural flow to our day now. It just seems like Aron was staying with me, him and his wife. And as you know, the kids have lived with us for the last 10 years. And after my husband passed, they lived with me. And kids have always loved their dad to death. But he wasn't able to put as much of what he wanted to into his kids because of his addiction. And that's one thing that I've really noticed now is how much he cares and how much he is able to connect with his kids on a level that he wasn't able to before.
There's something.
There's the relationship blooming.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, like I just find his relationship with the kids are blooming, and just his connection with his son and taking him hunting and things that they have in common, and it's just wonderful to see. It's great. And you had a question?
No, it was more of a comment. When Aron was sharing, and he said that he didn't have a conscience, that he didn't care about anything. That's profound to me because I know Aron, and like I like to post my music to Facebook and things sometimes, and when I do, he's the first to message me, and he'll be like, "Bro, I'm crying."
Oh yes.
That was beautiful, and like he's so expressive now, and I'm so comfortable talking with him.
Well, Aron always did have that side to him. Like I know his thoughts were a lot when he told of his life was about the badass side of himself. But what we saw as parents was just a remarkable, loving child. He loved animals. He was the first to always want to be at family functions. Everybody loved him. Like it seemed like all the family took to him. He was just such a loving person. And it's amazing how, as life is acted out, how differently things are perceived by different people. What we saw and what was going through his mind